Are collectibles in a bubble in 2021? Going through recent eBay listings for Marvel Masterpiece cards, I found a PSA graded 10 Spider-Man sold for $1,600 US. Now that is a PSA 10, so obviously there's going to be less of those graded, but you have to remember there is a massive back catalog of cards that need to be graded. You know, whether it's Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, even Marvel trading cards, sports cards. When there's a bubble, you'll notice it because in a few months from now, you're going to see a lot more of these cards hit the market, and these cards that people are paying $1,600 for, it's going to feel really bad when they realize the sheer volume increasing. You know, Marvel Masterpieces, for instance, this Spider-Man, it's not even a rare card. I watched a booster box break just recently, and they had about 4 of them in one booster box. So you got 4 of these cards in one booster box, and a PSA graded 10 one just sold for $1,600. Now, I do not want to be the person who spent that much money on this card. I'll tell you that. Now, why am I on the side of collectibles being more in a bubble this year? Now, obviously there's rare instances where I wouldn't necessarily think it would be a bubble. You know, old Pokemon cards, you know, first edition, shadowless, or old comic books like Amazing Fantasy number 15, old reserve list, dual lands. Those aren't really in a bubble. Yeah, they are going up higher than expected in such a short amount of time, but there's a lot of factors that get us to that point, which I'll actually go over in this video. Now, in the 90s, that's when things were just so mass-produced. Anything that was a collectible, companies like Marvel, lots of sports card companies, they wanted to cash in on that. So they printed as many cards as possible, as many comics as possible to gain in all that revenue. And when they actually sold these as collectibles, that was my laundry. It actually got more people to buy it who weren't even relatively into comic books themselves. They just wanted to make money off of this big boom. The way Marvel profited off of that is they had a lot of issues. They kept making new issues with number 1. It'll be like this new number 1 of Wolverine, even though there's like 5 Wolverines out, or they'll come up with a new character, give them a new comic book, number 1, issue number 1. And because obviously number 1 issues of older comic books have such a high return compared to other issues, people are like, well, if it's number 1, it's got to be worth a lot of money, right? Even though they didn't know how much was printed out there, what the supply was. You know, this is before people had a lot of data at their disposal, like because of inventions like the internet. Like, it wasn't as accessible to a lot of people. So people got obsessed with collecting number 1 issues. And then even with sports cards, the way that they actually ballooned their bubble is of rookie cards. They kept snapping rookie card on there. And then you didn't just have one card company making these. You had multiple, like tons and tons. It was such a big industry. People wanted new number 1 rookie cards of hockey players, baseball players, basketball players. And then eventually that ended up collapsing because people realized that when the economy started to do poorly, people saw that as, oh, it's just really, they're just pieces of cardboard and there's so many of them out there. Why would it be worth this? And, you know, PSA graded Spider-Man number 10. It's PSA 10 graded $1,600 Spider-Man cards. You might see the same thing happen with that. I would hate to be that person again who spent that much money on that. Now, when it comes to reserve list buyouts, obviously this Magic Gathering channel, this is what I specifically talk about. That's a whole different thing. See, reserve lists are cards that are never going to be printed again. So for that, they are collectible. Obviously, there's going to be levels there where some cards are actually useful and they're reserve list cards, and that will actually see a greater return. Now, some of the cards that are being bought up aren't particularly great, and yes, there may be a bit of a retrace on those, but in the future, ultimately, Magic Gathering is the biggest card game that there is in the world, and eventually these cards are going to go up in value because of the scarcity element and the fact that they're not going to be reprinted ever again. So when it comes to the PSA grading for these cards, like the Marvel Masterpiece cards, so let's think about that for a second. So what does Magic the Gathering, or Pokemon for that matter, have over these other trading cards? Well, it's a game. So ultimately there is going to be another form of value that you can recoup from it. The Marvel trading cards, well, you can say why are they going up? Is it scarcity? Collectability? Well, considering there's a lot more volume out there than people realize, that's not really going to be the case. There isn't any other real reason for them to be going up this much, apart from one thing that I'm going to talk about now. Now, stimulus, quantitative easing, more money velocity into the market. You know, people, when they have all this money being injected into the market, usually assets will go up, whether it's houses, collectibles, gold, silver. These go up, and that could be one of the reasons why we're actually seeing a lot of these collectibles go up. Now, houses going up, that's a given, right? But let's say if you're a boomer and you already have your house, you're not going to be selling it anytime soon. So, what about millennials? What assets do they have? Well, a lot of them don't own houses. So where are they parking their money if they want to put it in the bank? Well, collectibles. You can see what's actually happening if you look at interest rates in the banks. They're so low, you're not really getting a lot of return. And then, you know, people, maybe they're making some money in the stock market. It's really volatile. They don't want to have all their assets in there, so they take some of it out and they buy collectibles, something where they feel there's going to be some sort of like monetary return in the future. And if you can't qualify for a mortgage or you can't buy a house, you want to find a safe place to put your money. Now, actually, I think some of that would be going into the factors here where collectibles are going up so much in 2021. And whether it's Magic the Gathering, comic books, whether it's Pokemon, at the end of the day, cards, you know, like Spider-Man being sold for $1,600, PSA 10, people realize when they park their money in these assets, eventually, piece by piece, it becomes a house of cards. And all you need to do is pull out a few of those cards for the whole thing come tumbling down. 2021, am I right?